everyone, and welcome to our Global Delivery Market Landscape Performance Review webcast, highlighting the results from our Global Delivery Market Report. My name is Allison Crawford, and I will be your host for today's session. Business Research's focus is to provide business research to accelerate our clients' success, and this webinar is a part of these ongoing efforts to find ways to support you and your business, helping get the most out of your research investment. In this session, IT service firms are expanding their footprints and capabilities globally, with pockets of investment springing up all over the planet with specific technical focuses. Teams have been tracking this growth for the past 2 years and is pleased to present the findings from the 4th iteration of the study. This information will help IT services firms understand the opportunities and challenges of operating delivery centers across the major global geos and provide actionable insight into the market and competitive strategies that translate into competitive advantage. In the next 45 minutes, C&SI Ramunas, Svarcas, and Analyst Erin Hichman will delve into the trends driving the results featured in the study, followed by Q&A of these trends and how they will affect you. Before I pass over to Ramunas and Erin, there are a few logistics I'd like to cover. For the recording of today's session and posting it to our YouTube site, TBR channel, we encourage you to visit our channel to watch this presentation or any of the others we've posted. Second, we'd like to hear your opinions and thoughts on the materials we're presenting. Send any questions or comments to the Q&A or chat function. Erin will address them at the end of the presentation. Or, if you'd like to set up a client inquiry for more detailed discussion, please reach out directly to Ramunas at the end of the webinar with a CCD or account executive to set up that discussion. Third, we'll send out the slides to everyone registered for today's webcast within 24 hours of the conclusion of the webinar. You can also find the slides as well as our thought leadership pieces, webinars, and commentaries on SlideShare at www.slideshare.net/TBR_market_insight. Now let me introduce Ramunas Svarcas, Senior Analyst and Engagement Manager in the Professional Services practice. For 11 years, Ramunas has covered the IT services market. The depth of his knowledge has helped our large clients plan their strategic roadmap, increasing their profit margins and lowering their risk. And by Erin Hichman, who is leading TBR research coverage of the offshore providers and is an author on the Global Market Delivery Landscape Report. This report has been hailed as mission critical and strategic by the customers subscribing to the report, and we look forward to sharing some of our insights with you today. And with that, I hand this over to Ramunas.
Listen, the goal of the presentation today is to understand, the global delivery markets landscape and the fact that it's changing and evolving. Global delivery is no longer a luxury, but a necessity for vendors to succeed in the professional service marketplace. Resources are shifting based on market demand, and vendors are reacting to those shifts in different ways. Vendors need to build resources while still paying attention to profitability. The study today helps understand the changes that are occurring. Specifically, we're going to address 3 key questions. What's actually happening with headcount growth, and more specifically, low-cost headcount growth. Headcount growth, are vendors doing anything unique or different to support delivery, reduce costs, and improve their profits? And finally, what services aspects are really impacting operating margin? Before I get started with the actual study results, just a couple of housekeeping chores. I wanted to quickly just give everybody an understanding of what is the Global Delivery Market Landscape Report. This really focuses on 14 vendors that we cover within our TBR Professional Services practice. Then we believe these vendors are ones that are leading in global delivery or are having a significant play in the marketplace. This is currently being purchased by a number of IT services firms, including 5 leading IT services vendors. And whether these leading vendors are expanding staff to grow revenues and profits, or you think that you need an inkling of where you might want to leverage offshore staff and where you want to position your own internal sources, this is a study that really you need to pay attention to. One of the key elements here, and just so, again, from a understanding standpoint, is that we look at the global delivery market landscape in terms of 3 groups of IT service providers. The 3 groups are SIs without a significant product portfolio, system vendors with product portfolios, and then the Indian-based vendors. Why this way? We really believe, and through our past experience and following of these companies, each of these firms is coming to the global delivery market landscape with different legacy offerings, which have driven how their overall global delivery has evolved over time. To looking at it through the lens of three different groups, we also break down, global delivery into two additional groups. We're looking at low-cost delivery resources and onshore delivery resources. And within onshore, we also include here this on-site staff that is included in the onshore analysis. We prefer the term low cost as opposed to offshore, since we're dealing with a global environment and global customers, and given customer, depending on where they're located and what facilities are supporting them by a professional services vendor, offshore can actually have a different meaning for them. So to avoid really confusion, we refer to the sources as low cost as opposed to offshore. So what's happening in the marketplace? Very quickly, we see headcount growth decelerating overall, and especially also in the low-cost area, where vendors are trying to improve profitability and breaking the link between revenue growth and headcount resources. Finally, we're sad, although everybody's looking at low-cost leverage, it's really only one important factor in that's changing the profitability outlook for a number of different companies. We'll go over the rest of the discussion here in the presentation to Erin. Erin, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Ramunas. The topic we will cover has to do with headcount growth. Services overall headcount growth is decelerating. Out of expected continued instability in developed economies, vendors are slowing their pace of recruitment and hiring. This shows headcount and year-to-year headcount growth for the 14 vendors included in this study combined for calendar 3Q11 through calendar 2Q12. The dark bar is total headcount, where the blue is low-cost headcount and the green is onshore headcount. The orange circles and line show year total headcount growth, while dark gray circles and line are low-cost growth, and the light color is onshore headcount growth. For the 14 vendors in this study is decelerating across onshore and low-cost locations, as vendors anticipate lower demand levels stemming from fiscal austerity and extended decision cycles for projects in Europe and North America. Clients in mature markets are prioritizing short-term run-the-business deals over long-term change-the-business deals, which is influencing vendor hiring strategies. To increase leverage of existing resources and drive revenue growth without adding headcount growth, vendors are investing in IT assets. In addition, vendors are augmenting their global delivery capabilities in low-cost locations. Simultaneously, vendors are building their local market presence across growing economies in Eastern Europe, Africa, Middle East, Latin America, APAC, to increase proximity to clients and drive revenue growth in these regions. This graph shows low-cost and onshore headcount in calendar 2Q11 and 2Q12, as well as total headcount year growth for all 14 vendors included in this study. The blue bar is low-cost headcount, and the green is onshore headcount. Broken into the three segments for this study that Ramunas explained earlier: SIs with support and maintenance, SIs, and Indian vendors. Vendors using their resource mix to accommodate current IT service demand trends, which is primarily cost savings. I'll tell you examples. Services is offering its delivery capabilities by leveraging low-cost resources while streamlining staff in developed economies, focus on high-margin services such as consulting. However, HP's 29,000 announced layoffs by the end of 2014 at the corporate level, impacting HP services overall headcount level, resulting in a year-to-year decline. Of Siemens IT Solutions and Services, or SIS, added approximately 27,000 people to Atos, increasing its onshore reach and boosting its low-cost resource base from 17% of total headcount in calendar 2Q11 to acquisitions, 25% in 2Q12. Capgemini, on the other hand, is playing it safe in its home market of Europe by slowing hiring in consulting and SI and local professional services, particularly in the Benelux region. Services headcount growth, like Atos, is boosted by acquisition activity. WDS, which adds 2,000 employees across the UK, the US, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and South Africa. In addition, Xerox Services is accelerating hiring at rural U.S. customer care BPO centers, using temporary call center hires in the U.S. to preserve profitability levels. Indian headcount growth, as you can see, has decelerated across the board. This is due to a high year-ago compare, coupled with hiring slowdowns that mimic slow demand for services. Now look at onshore and low-cost headcount growth by region. This shows onshore and low-cost headcount in calendar 2Q11 and 2Q12 and year-to-year growth in the Americas, APAC, EMEA, for all 18 vendors included in this study. See, the hiring patterns vary by geography. First, look at the Americas. The graph shows that onshore headcount growth is higher than low-cost growth in the Americas, driven primarily by non-U.S. based vendors investing in their U.S. resource bases to develop and grow client relationships. U.S.-based vendors are also adding onshore headcount in the Americas. Headcount growth in the Americas is driven by three trends that we are seeing. The first is that European-based SIs are expanding onshore headcount to get there and decrease their dependence on Europe for revenue streams. That non-Europe-based SIs are increasing their onshore resource base to serve the U.S. government due to regulatory requirements for U.S. delivery. Third is that Indian vendors are hiring onshore locals to increase client time, gain better visibility, opportunities, and push for high-value engagements, such as consulting-led and transformational deals. Now, headcount growth in the Americas is supported by vendors shifting their talent mix away from regional delivery centers in the U.S. to American locations to reduce costs. This practice is primarily leveraged by SIs with support and maintenance. And vendors, primarily the SIs and Indian vendors, are hiring in America to drive local and regional service delivery. Moving to APAC, we also see that onshore headcount growth is growing faster than low-cost headcount. Headcount makes up less than 4% of total APAC headcount in this study. Vendors seeking ways to expand their APAC revenue streams, as seen in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. For example, Capgemini is adding resources in Australia to drive growth in energy utilities, financial services, and the public sector. Also, Infosys recently opened a new office in Japan to drive deals with local and global firms. Local growth in APAC is supported by vendors across the three groups diversifying their local market presence in countries such as India and China, while at the same time expanding headcount to support global client delivery. For example, HCL recently opened its center in the Philippines that will support its BPO clients. An immediate different trend, with low-cost headcount growing more rapidly than onshore headcount, expanding their delivery in local market resources in low-cost EMEA, such as in Poland, Africa, Russia, and the Middle East, and service delivery to regional and global clients, and also drive revenue opportunities in emerging markets. In addition, recent acquisitions such as Atos' purchase of SIS and Xerox Services' purchase of WDS have led to the low-cost headcount base in EMEA. Growth in EMEA is also driven by the same acquisitions. In addition, Indian vendors are increasing onshore hiring in Europe to attract high-value engagements without their consulting bases. Also, to cut costs but retain onshore presence, vendors are changing their hiring targets. For example, Capgemini is increasing its focus on freshers in Europe. Now on to our second trend. A key element of the slowdown in vendor hiring patterns is the goal of driving revenue growth ahead of headcount growth. To do this, vendors are investing in tools and accelerators to better leverage their current employee bases. Accelerators are through R&D investments and acquisitions. To break between revenue growth and headcount additions, vendors must alter their historical approach to investing assets and internal operations. Vendors invest in IP, including tools, accelerators, and platforms, encouraging internal initiatives and programs that focus on efficient delivery and internal operations. C&SI, vendors are struggling to decouple revenue growth from headcount growth. Where revenue per employee growth is typically due to restructuring and slowed hiring coupled with investments in tools and accelerators, but not solely due to nonlinear methods. And C&SI is Accenture. It uses consulting assets to accelerate its clients' transformation and desired outcomes. Accenture's Cloud Opportunity Assessment tool supports the assessment of applications and infrastructure to determine cloud opportunities, define targets, and develop roadmaps. Accenture's cloud-enabled IT operating model provides a blueprint of how a client's organization operates and how IT services are provided, including functions, processes, governance, roles, and organizational models. In we are emphasizing industrialization to drive revenue growth without corresponding headcount additions. Fit application management tool uses standardized building blocks as the basis for the solution. Atos' workload automation tool is used in application operations services. This covers of customers' batch environment and it plans, documents, and automates the execution of the batch processes on all platforms. Nonlinear revenue growth will be achieved through platform solutions. CAP is improving BPO profitability from single digits to double digits by using IT. Examples are its platform BPO solutions such as e-sourcing and e-procurement, gained IBX acquisition in 2010, and its BP Open 2.0 framework that optimizes efficiency and delivers transparent of quality, value, and control to clients. Lastly, MTO vendors will see the most success in decoupling revenue growth and headcount growth by investing in less labor-intensive, remotely delivered asset offerings. Capgemini's Infrastructure Management Operations Center, or IMOP, is a capability operated across its right shore network in the heart of remote infrastructure management. Is a control room that displays the health and status of a client's infrastructure networks and helps analyze client business issues. So now that we have looked at headcount growth trends and investments to achieve nonlinear growth streams, we will move to our last trend. The last topic we'd like to cover has to do with margin expansion. What are we doing in addition to leveraging low-cost resources to drive margins? This shows trailing 12-month operating margin versus low-cost leverage as percent of total headcount by the group for 2012 compared with 2011. Darker color bars represent 2011 operating margin and the lighter 2012 operating margin. The towards the top is 2011 low-cost leverage, whereas the diamond is 2012 low-cost leverage. You see the vendors with the highest low-cost leverage, the Indian vendors, also have highest margins. To shed their image as solely outsourcing providers, the Indian vendors are expanding their onshore consulting resource pools in the U.S. and Europe to capture value engagements. These engagements will benefit operating margin in the long term once the engagements realized outpace the onshore investments required. However, to meet these delivery and price demands, the majority of the Indian vendor employees are in low-cost locations and will remain so. The S with a hardware component have the highest margins due to the margin buffer built in from highly profitable support and maintenance services. Without hardware, lowest set of margins, they are currently building out a low-cost headcount presence and do have the support and maintenance component as a margin boost. In addition, a few vendors in this section have been hit with different costs, bringing overall margin down for this segment. Now let's look at the vendor-specific results. Graph shows operating margin and low-cost headcount leverage as a percent total headcount for each vendor. The darker bars represent 2Q11 operating margin, where lighter color is 2Q12 operating margin. The diamond shows 2Q12 low-cost leverage, and the arrow above the diamond indicates if low-cost leverage has increased or decreased since 2Q11. Global capabilities and resources in low-cost locations are must-haves for IT service vendors. There is a correlation between low-cost delivery and profitability. Small near-term shifts in low-cost leverage do not have an immediate impact on profitability. Seeing profitability improvement, vendors must invest in efficiency initiatives, industrialized delivery models, and portfolio shifts, higher value offerings to supplement low-cost delivery profit contribution. Global Services is a prime example of a vendor leveraging a mix to improve profitability. In this segment, the firm is investing in automation, increased global delivery reach, and has standardized processes that cover design, sales, and delivery. Also, it is outcome-based contracts, which share risk fees to realize benefits for the client. With the Consulting, SI, and Applications segment, the firm is focused on high-value IP-based offerings, optimize delivery, and productivity to expand margins. Excel is also seeing success. The firm uses its Global Delivery Network, or GDN, for service delivery, but also uses standardized tools, frames, and processes to simplify, speed, and improve service delivery while maintaining quality. TBR, on the other hand, is proving to reduce reliance on low-cost headcount while expanding profitability, investing in its global workforce and increasing its mix of nearshore and onshore staff. At this time, TCS is investing in delivery tools and IP assets to promote margin expansion. In the long term, by having a larger onshore local staff pool and tools and accelerators, including platform-based solutions, TCS will maintain margin expansion. Vendors with declining margins are struggling with additional factors. For example, HR Services is shifting headcount from onshore to low cost and investing in higher margin services, including cloud and consulting. However, the firm faces continually declining revenues, which prevent it from profitably growing. Gemini is emphasizing industrialized service delivery and cost cutting. They're leveraging shared service deployment instead of client-dedicated resources at delivery centers, and is using the use of tools for service delivery and staffing. And the firm is working on pyramid management, which includes offshore expansion and restructured onshore resources. Despite efforts, Capgemini faces lingering pricing pressures, which is preventing margin expansion. It has a high leverage of low-cost resources, leverages automation, tools, and technology, has standard operating procedures, and has invested in eliminating unnecessary work. However, investments in onshore consultants and sales and marketing efforts to transform its image closer to that of an MNC are harming its margins. We've covered the detail on the three major trends that we are seeing. I'm going to turn it back over to Ramunas.
So what we learned from our second quarter 2012 global delivery study? We saw that headcount growth is slowing. Not stopped completely, and there are specific regions and countries that are growing and showing growth. We did into the specific country details for the study here. We have some mentions that Erin pointed out in certain countries. It really are examined in more detail on a vendor-by-vendor basis in our final study report. Second is that we recognize that vendors are trying to maximize profitability, breaking the link between revenue growth and headcount growth, especially low-cost headcount growth and the leveraging of labor arbitrage. We're in a services business. The vendors we're covering are all in the services business, and people like talking to people rather than machines. This is human nature. As a result, we recognize that there is not going to be a complete and total decoupling of headcount growth from services delivery. We expect that low-cost resources will continually be needed, and as demand grows, low-cost resource growth will again accelerate in the future. We know that low-cost leverage does impact profitability, but it takes time and effort to realize the benefits. Vendors have been leveraging their resources for quite a long time. It shows up in their profit margins. A lot of the European firms are trying to expand. They're suffering a little bit from a profitability standpoint. Certainly other factors are influencing that, but they're trying to build their low-cost resources. Effectively the catch-up game. And the ultimate goal across the board for all the vendors we look at is really they're trying to improve their profits and better serve their clients. So, if you do manage your global delivery network properly, you leverage the right resources, you put in the right places, you can contribute handsomely to your profits for the organization. So I'd like to now hear our first question.
Excellent, guys. We had a couple questions come in. I'd like to encourage anyone that has any questions on materials that Erin and Ramunas just presented to send along now. The first question we had that came through was, which vendors have been successful in nonlinear revenue growth?
So, Erin, the topic of nonlinear revenue growth is something that we come across often with the vendors that we cover. We believe from 14 vendors, HCLT is seeing success. Its year-to-year revenue growth has outpaced its year-to-year headcount growth since calendar 4Q10. We believe firms' willingness to forego margin expansion to pursue internal investments that ultimately result in revenue growth is the firm's differentiating factor among the vendors in this study. HCL leverages its strong portfolio of IP, which includes tools and accelerators, cloud solutions, and unique internal initiatives that stress project efficiencies and employee accountability and empowerment to break the link between revenue growth and headcount additions. For example, HCL's Employees First, Customers Second initiative rolled out in 2005 bottom-up operating model. It motivates, supports, and empowers employees of all levels to be accountable, and their results in employees being more efficient, allowing the company to achieve more without padding its headcount.
A follow-up question to that, Erin and Ramunas, is are these firms also building new service offerings under consulting portfolio to build this growth? If yes, what?
It actually goes beyond the scope of our global delivery market landscape report, but certainly is one that is very valid. Portfolios are very important. The vendors are focusing on consulting to create a value-added service so that they can improve profitability, and building and adding services, specifically consulting services. We know the whole cloud market specifically has created a huge opportunity for consulting and advisory assistance. Not alone that you can certainly outsource many of your business processes and use global delivery, but now we're getting into the whole management consulting realm, real advising and helping firms from that perspective. So if every one of the vendors in our global delivery market landscape study are expanding their consulting portfolios and specifically their management consulting portfolios to provide advisory assistance systems in regards to cloud and in regards to other initiatives such as mobility, analytics being two of the key areas where there's a lot of focus and a lot of services being created in terms of examining the capabilities that a firm has and then helping them, bring those capabilities, improve those capabilities so that they can effectively compete in the marketplace.
Okay, we had another follow-up to that, Ramunas. Are these services varying across market, i.e. big data?
Definitely. And big data is a key area. It certainly is a focus area for a number of firms. Big data in itself, and many people taught it from various different perspectives. Really, the analytics developments are really focused on addressing the explosion of information in big data. Certainly, firms are trying to look at where to store the data and leveraging cloud initiatives for that, or they're doing it internally, then leveraging various platforms and various, and different software to analyze the information. But after that, what we're also seeing happening is that what's going on in the marketplace is that many of the consulting firms here are actually providing assistance from the analytics standpoint. For instance, Accenture is providing really almost staff augmentation from the standpoint that they will help analyze the data using the analytics tools to help companies make decisions within their organization.
Okay, we had a question come in. What hiring trends are you seeing in Latin America? And I know we've got some colleagues from Nearshore Americas on here that'll be very excited to hear about that information.
Okay, so in America, we're seeing that low-cost hiring is actually slowing, driven by a slowdown in economic growth and expectations in the region. So in addition, increased wages and risks associated with the U.S. fiscal cliff and Latin America's strong connection with the U.S. economy and the area crisis are causing slower growth levels. So I'm seeing overall hiring in Latin America decelerate.
Okay, the next question we had came in was, which countries in APAC are vendors focused on for low cost?
Okay. APAC region remains the prime location for low-cost leverage at almost 86% headcount for this study. It is a key global delivery location, but also draws vendor attention for its local market expansion opportunities. We're seeing growth in China is conservative as vendor strategies are primarily focused on low market expansion. Philippines, we're seeing that this location is becoming more popular, in particular for BPO services. Vendors are investing in Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam for delivery and local markets.
Okay, the next question we had came in, what are the key markets these organizations are eyeing for growth, such as for security services?
I believe that's referred to in terms of the additional consulting services that people are trying to leverage and use. Services certainly is an area of concern as well. Security in general is an area of concern. In terms of global delivery, from that perspective, we don't really see an evolution of where firms are leveraging their staff. From a consulting standpoint, we know that firms are putting people in places where they can maximize their exposure and provide guidance to their clients. There are certain global delivery centers that have been established that do have that expertise regarding security, and then it's being leveraged to as many clients as possible. But in terms of actually delivering security services, some of the vendors we know are also looking at and starting to evolve their portfolios and offering security as a service, which I believe is part of the overall global delivery, since you certainly want to center those people in specific locations to maximize the exposure and coverage. haven't had yet really a strong trend, especially from a security standpoint at the present time.
Okay. Another question we had, Ken. What are the trends in employee utilization you're seeing?
Okay, so for this particular study, we saw that utilization for overall onshore and Lowcost actually decreased in Q12 from 2Q11. That the Indian vendors are seeing utilization declines due to an extended bench staff was caused by recent aggressive hiring activity. While some non-India-based vendors are seeing a decline in utilization, we believe this is several reluctance to dramatically adjust staff sizes due to the softness in the market. For all firms is a huge cost, and we believe many vendors are willing to weather the downturn, slightly larger staff, expecting better times ahead. Vendors that have efficiency initiatives and streamlined processes are able to increase utilization. For example, IBM Global Services leverages optimized delivery models, processes, and an IP to improve its utilization.
Okay. Hold on one second. The next question that came in. Are firms building? I don't know if I asked this question. Are there firms building consulting portfolio for security services to support growth and bring on device and mobility?
Yes, there are. There's not of them out there yet, but it certainly that is a trend that's emerging in the marketplace. Interesting thing regarding mobility is that it in fact is a strategic decision. Security services to support bring your own devices is really the end result of strategic decision to first of all support bring your own devices into various enterprise organizations. And in itself, there's a lot of work being done by the various vendors from a consultative standpoint in terms of advising firms on what's the best strategy, how do you handle it, do you limit the number of devices, do you limit the number of platforms that you support with those devices. Those are really consultative type engagements. Again, it's a little bit away from what we're talking here today in terms of actually where the resources are located to support those environments. From an overall market standpoint, it is a definite trend in the marketplace to want to consult on that aspect. One of the issues there is it's not just a professional services vendor offering some guidance regarding that, but it really boils down to a business decision internally. It takes into account the risk and governance that a firm needs to exercise in their organization, whether they feel comfortable, and then whether or not they want to build out the resources themselves or leverage outside firms. And here, many times you have, as a professional services vendor helping with that consultation or actual engagement and actually doing that kind of activity.
We got a couple more questions I think are probably best specifically about the study. So I'd like to take one last minute to ask anyone if they have any additional questions for either Ramunas or Erin around the study. I want to thank Erin and Ramunas for your time, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We've enjoyed the discussion, and we look forward to working with you as you build out your global roadmaps. Before we sign off, I would like to encourage you to follow Erin, Ramunas, and TBR on Twitter at the handles that have been provided here. And I would want to encourage you to check out SlideShare and our YouTube pages for more information on the presentations we've been giving. Additionally, when you are logging off, there's a short post-webinar survey to collect your feedback on the presentation today. We'd really appreciate any feedback you guys can pass along to us. I'm going to leave the chat function open for another few minutes to get any last additional questions or follow-up conversations that you may want to have with the analysts around this. Thanks, everyone, and we look forward to speaking with you all again in 6 months.